My name is Jenna Tan, and I am a senior at Newtown High School, and my presentation is Sexual Violence and How It Affects Future Generations of American Culture. So, sexual violence is any sexual behavior that happens without another person's consent. No matter how small it may seem, if one person does not consent or is not comfortable with what is happening, it is a form of sexual violence. A few examples are rape, sexual harassment, sexual assault, or inappropriate touching. Marital rape is in the picture because people often think that marriage means the ownership of another person's body. That is not the case. If one person in the married couple is not comfortable with the sexual intercourse that is happening, it is still considered rape. So who does it affect? Women, men, transgenders, non-binary people, African Americans, Native Americans, disabled people, Caucasians, Asians, Latinx, queers, and heterosexuals. This list is purposely long and overlaps in so many ways because there are queer black people, transgender white people, and disabled Native Americans. The list of different types of people can go on forever, even getting into political beliefs and religious backgrounds. Sexual violence transpires with all demographics. No matter how small the percentage, the issue is faced by people of all backgrounds. In the category of women, 1 out of every 6 women in America have been the victim of a completed rape or an attempted rape in her lifetime. 14.8% completed, 2.8% attempted. Really think about how large that number is. I know a lot of women, and I'm sure you do too, so just think, 1 out of every 6 of those women you know has been in a rape situation. 90% of adult rape victims are female, and 82% of adolescent victims are female. Even though sexual violence can happen to any gender, among various age groups, women make up the majority of victims. Women ages 18 through 24 who are enrolled in college are 3 times more likely to experience sexual violence, and the women who in that age group who aren't in college are 4 times more likely to experience sexual violence. There isn't a big difference in numbers of sexual violence between females in college versus females outside of college. This goes to show that college campuses need to do a better job at protecting its students from sexual assault. Men are also included in this discussion. There is a dangerous dialogue that men aren't and can't be victims of sexual violence. This stigma is dangerous because it causes a lack of information to be provided to males throughout all ages on the issue. This tends to create a construct where men aren't aware or informed of the problem and end up being the perpetrators of sexual violence, sometimes without even knowing it. So, when you catcall someone you find attractive, follow a person around, persistently try to get someone's number even after they refuse, or made sexual jokes or comments even though the person is uncomfortable, that is a form of sexual violence. It may seem small to you, but these situations are very dangerous for victims because it can end up with them being assaulted, raped, or killed after being violated. These situations also have long-term effects on victims because it creates a paranoia of being attacked while out. This lack of knowledge also leads to young boys not speaking up about being sexually abused or keeping male rape victims from reporting because they think they'll be shamed. 1 out of every 10 rape victims are male. About 3% of men have experienced an attempted or completed rape in their life. That is about 1 out of every 33 men. That number may seem minuscule compared to women, but it is still very important to acknowledge their trauma. Male victims deserve the same amount of support as any other demographic dealing with sexual violence. Yes, race is a factor. Ethnicity is relevant to the examination of sexual violence. There is a disproportionate amount of sexual violence among and against minorities. The high rates of sexual violence compared to the amount of people in these communities is alarming. One study found that Latinx, Black, and Asian Americans were more likely to endorse rape myths such as they were asking for it and hold negative attitudes towards rape victims than white people, even if they had been the victims of sexual violence themselves. These myths affect minorities because they come with harmful stereotypes. For example, only promiscuous women get raped. Research has also shown that white Americans were more likely to uphold stereotypes and rape myths when minorities were involved. All of this means that there is a higher chance of minorities being the victims of sexual violence and not being given the justice of having their attacker convicted. 21% of transgender, genderqueer, and non-conforming college students have been sexually assaulted. 47% of transgender people are sexually assaulted at some point in their life. Nearly half. 48% of bisexual women who are rape survivors experienced their first rape between ages 11 and 17. 44% of lesbians and 61% of bisexual women experience rape, physical violence, or stalking by an intimate partner compared to the 35% of heterosexual women. 26% of gay and 37% of bisexual men experience rape, physical violence, or stalking by an intimate partner compared to the 29% of heterosexual men. The LGBTQ+ community are victims of sexual violence. Emphasis on the violence because they are one of the most targeted groups of people in America. They are often forgotten about in the discussion. When it comes to protection, our country has invested millions into the safety of women when going out of the house. We are constantly on the defensive when it comes to sexual violence. For example, stun guns, actual guns, and ways to conceal them when carried, pepper spray, mace that leaves a residue on the attacker's face so cops can identify them later, underwear that cannot be ripped or pulled off by an attacker to prevent rape, fingernail polish that changes color when it comes in contact with date rape drugs. So people are actually sticking their fingers into beverages to make sure that they are safe to drink at parties and clubs. The long-term effects on victims. 94% of women experience PTSD after they are raped. PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder. It's when a person has difficulty recovering from a traumatic event, often accompanied by anxiety, flashbacks, and triggered by sounds, words, pictures, etc. 33% of people who experience rape attempt suicide. After being raped, survivors often feel depressed and no longer want to be alive. Being violated in such a way damages the way survivors see themselves and life. 70% of all sexual violence victims experience moderate to severe distress, and 37% of survivors experience distance from and distrust among family, friends, and coworkers, even people that they are extremely close to. After being assaulted, victims are paranoid about it happening again, so they distance themselves from people around them. And these victims are 6 times more likely to use cocaine and 10 times more likely to use other major drugs. They often turn to drugs to take the pain away. So how has it affected the previous generations? We talked about post-traumatic stress disorder, and there have been numerous reports of older women saying they are experiencing PTSD or they have psychiatric distress due to sexual violence they've experienced in their life. Repression is the reason victims wait so long to share or report their trauma. The sexual violation is so jarring to the psyche that victims often deny, minimize, or doubt the occurrence of what happened to them. Some are even angry and scared of what will happen to them if they report to the police, or they don't report at all because they think nothing will come of it. So how has it affected our current society? Entertainment-wise, when going out with friends, a person can be catcalled while walking to a concert, pinched on the butt at a bar, or cornered into a room alone at a party. Perpetrators also take advantage of victims who are intoxicated with drugs and alcohol. If someone is drunk or high, do not engage in sexual activities with them. They often regret the occurrence because they weren't able to make sound decisions. Whenever in that situation, please remember, if they can't say no, they can't say yes. In movies and TV shows, there's a lack of strong lead characters that are woman, queer, a person of color, or even all three combined. This contributes to how attackers pick victims because these demographics aren't shown to fight back or be strong. There's often a power structure in the workplace. When an employee is purposely made to feel uncomfortable in a sexual manner, they sometimes fear what will happen to them if they report the issue to human resources. Unfortunately, people are sexually assaulted and raped on college campuses. More than a fourth have reported being sexually assaulted by force or when they were incapacitated. Again, I remind you, if they can't say no, they can't say yes. How has it affected our economy? Services can be provided to help victims with recovery, prevent sexual assault while out, call for help when being assaulted, or report the occurrence. For example, hotlines, counseling, clinical therapy, or even apps for reporting. Also, the previously mentioned weapons, anti-rape underwear, polish have also contributed to our economy. So, why don't people step in? It's not easy to step in, even when people know it's the right thing to do. They often say, I don't know what to say, it's not my business, and I don't want to cause a scene. It's okay to have these thoughts, but it's important to realize that your actions can prevent crimes like sexual assault or rape from happening in the first place. Don't let yourself become just a bystander. The only person responsible for committing sexual assault is the perpetrator, but everyone has the ability to look out for each other's safety. Bystander intervention. This is where a person who isn't directly involved in a situation steps in to change the outcome. So if you're ever in a situation like this, please remember to care. C, create a distraction. Cut off a conversation or start an activity to give the person you're concerned about a place to go. A, ask directly. Ask questions directly to the person who might be in trouble. For example, would you like me to stay with you, or who did you come with? R, refer to an authority. Refer to a neutral party like a security guard or another form of authority to help intervene in the situation. E, enlist others. Enlist a friend of the person you're concerned about. For example, your friends had a lot to drink. Can you check on them for me? Your actions matter, no matter how small they may seem. By stepping in, you are helping people become more conscious of their role in preventing sexual assault. Some victims find the process of reporting sexual assault more traumatic than the act itself. They aren't ready to be bombarded with questions and have to countlessly retell their assault. So, Jessica Ladd, founder of Callisto, has created an online reporting system to help survivors document their experience, even if they aren't ready to go to the authorities. So at the end of the day, why does any of this matter? This problem has a solution that is right at our fingertips. There are few issues on this scale that can be solved with simple steps, so we need to take this opportunity while it lasts. There doesn't need to be billions of dollars dedicated to research. There is no journey to find a cure. There doesn't need to be years worth of innovative technology, even though there is. Our solution is effective communication that transforms into action. We need to speak to each other about these issues on an individual and group level. We need to inform our political leaders on what they can do to make public places safe. By doing this, we need to tell them that convicting the perpetrators are key to this safety. More importantly, raise our next generation of children correctly. Raise them to know that any gender can be the victim or the criminal when involved in sexual violence. Teach children what behaviors are okay and not okay, because if you ignore them, they turn into habits that will harm other people. If people aren't informed on this issue and how to prevent it, they will become the cause of the issue. Some sources for help are 800-656-HOPE, to be connected with a trained staff member from a sexual assault service provider in your area. The National Sexual Assault Online Hotline provides confidential crisis support. Safe Horizon provides support and legal services for victims of sexual violence. Not Alone provides students with rights, instructions, and guidelines for when sexual assault happens on campus. The Anti-Violence Project provides support to LGBT communities and legal assistance for any type of hate or sexual violence. Men Can Stop Rape. This organization promotes nonviolent expressions of masculinity by mentoring male youth and teaching them about consent. It also provides support for male sexual violence victims. Forge. This national trans anti-violence organization provides services to transgender, gender non-conforming, and non-binary sexual assault victims and their family and friends. These are the sources I've used throughout the year for my research. Are there any questions?
Yes, why did you pick this topic to study?
It's not talked about, and that's a big reason why it's such an issue. Also, as an openly bisexual woman, the statistics against my demographic were alarming, so I really wanted to spread the info and make sure public places were safe for everyone.
And you're off to college, so
yeah.
Around.
Those are a lot of groups, or there are more groups?
What do you mean?
The ones that you listed.
Who does it affect?
Are there more groups, sexual oriented groups, the ones you mentioned in the slide?
Oh, so like the queer community. So yes, you have lesbians, gays, bisexual, pansexual, asexual, people who aren't attracted to anything. Yeah, they're pretty much all included in the queer community or the LGBT community, and they are all still affected. Yes.
So I don't have a question, but I have a statement, and just looking at this data is very alarming. And to know whenever you're dealing with data like this, that is just factual data, but like you said, what about the ones who don't share? So we know these percentages are even higher.
Yes.
So this is great info to know. And then when I heard you talk about the cat call, how often does that happen, and what age does it start? Because I've worked with kids probably 5 on up to, they become adults, and the age level that this happens at is at all age levels, So like you said, educating the young the youth is very important because at any stage they can be performing some type of sexual violence and they don't even know it, or they think it's a joke.
What roadblocks did you find in trying to get information about this topic? Because whenever you hear about sexual violence and searching in BCPS, I know a lot of resources are usually blocked. So how did you?
Well, most of the research, when I tried to do it here, it would be blocked. So I would go home and do it like way more. And most of the time, I would ask people about what types of sexual violence they've encountered, and then I take what they've said and try to find more research on it.
The research you presented was very a wealth of data. I wanted to ask you, in your research, what was your aha moment, that something that really stuck out in your mind, like, wow?
I'd have to say my aha moment was before, when I was first starting to figure out what topic I wanted to pick to do research on. If I want to be honest, I was going to do research on veganism, but but it kind of, once, like my friends, we have like a group chat. And so every now and then, when one of them were going out, they would text us and be like, okay, so this is where I am, and I just want you to let you know that there's this guy following me around. He's this height, he's this skin color, he's wearing this. They just be like, this is something that would happen like once or twice a month. And I just became like, why isn't anyone talking about this? Why is this so normal? So that's my aha moment. I was like, this needs to be talked about. So that's what I did research on.
Raise the truth.
I have a question. You mentioned something about, I guess, date rape, and when people, the fingernail polish, something like that. I didn't know about that one. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Okay, so a very big happening is people put date rape drugs into mostly females' drinks at college parties, clubs, or anything like that. And so, I don't have his name right now, but someone created a nail polish that you can dip into your drink, and in the matter of seconds, it'll change to a different color to tell you whether or not your drink has been tampered with. Thank you. So, yeah.
Very interesting.
Janae, you did an excellent job. Thank you so much. All right, 17 and a half minutes.